I filmed back-to-back. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't. And right now we're going to talk about Anchorman 2 and why I believe comedy movies really shouldn't have sequels. So Ron Burgundy and his mustache have returned, along with the news crew and his lovely wife Veronica Corningstone, for Anchorman 2. And when this was announced, I was really excited. When I saw the trailers, I was really excited. I was excited for all the hype and the appearances Will Ferrell was doing at local newsrooms to promote the movie. I went to see it on the opening weekend. I was like, yeah, it's going to be Ron Burgundy. And then I was crushingly disappointed because this made some of the major mistakes that I believe a comedy can make. And primarily, I think these are the mistakes that prevent most comedy sequels, especially in film, from being good. Those two mistakes are 1, the reset button, and 2, recycled jokes. The idea of the reset button is one that's pretty prevalent, especially in animated comedies like Simpsons or Family Guy, and also in sitcoms like Seinfeld with the no growing, no learning, no hugging, that the idea is at the end of every episode, the film world or the show world is reset and the characters are sort of at the same place they were initially. That they haven't learned anything, they haven't evolved as human beings, and essentially that prevents us from being emotionally engaged with them at the end as an audience, and therefore it makes it easier for us to laugh at them. In films such as Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, you get the reset button feature that, initially he had this whole romance with Courtney Cox and they came together, but basically that is ignored in the second film. The characters he knew and made friends with are ignored in the second film, and he's just gone on with his life, continuing to be a caricature. In The Simpsons, every episode, Bart and Lisa are still children, Maggie's still a baby, no matter how many Christmases they have together, no one ever ages, no one ever really learns, no one reflects on a past mistake. There's very little reference to previous canon because we don't want to see these people as people. We want to be able to see them as the butt of a joke. In Austin Powers even, they had him kill his wife because she was a fembot, so that we could move on with his story as a Lothario. And with Ron Burgundy, when you had this man who considered himself like a sex symbol and a seducer, and he was the top of his game, and then you have to watch his fall from grace, it just becomes uncomfortable because they didn't create a character in the first movie that perhaps you could emotionally engage with. I feel like he was meant to be the butt of a joke, so he was ridiculous, and when he had his downfall and he drank milk on a hot day, we were able to laugh at him, and we weren't particularly invested, or at least I wasn't particularly invested in the success of his relationship with Veronica Corningstone because, oh well, if he doesn't get her, he's a buffoon anyways. But in Anchorman 2, they came to it without pushing the reset button. So they left him married to Veronica, with a son with her now, flailing in his career as he's advanced as they suggested he did at the end of the first movie. But now he's so ridiculous that his fellow news compatriots are still mocking him, and they're no longer mocking him on an equal playing field, that he is actually better than them. He's less than them. It's an uncomfortable kind of comedy because he's weaker than them, and it's almost like you want to feel bad for him, but he's ridiculous. And the subject matter they've chosen to poke fun at is divorce and bad parenthood, and those are not particularly funny subjects, and I think if you tackled them in the right way, you could make them funny. I'm not saying that anything's really off the table for comedy a lot of times. It can go in any direction, and I think Ricky Gervais proves that over and over again.
Is he going to heaven then?
We don't know.
But they did not successfully make this comedic. They took heavy, sad subjects and tried to make you invest in his character and spent a lot more time building this plot for his character. It was over a 2-hour-long movie, which is a very long time for a comedy, and they spent all this time trying to build this emotional investment in this character and his story and who he was instead of bringing the jokes. And I think in the first Anchorman, they had a lot more riffing. They had a cast of comedians, and that really showed that everything they said was funny and on point. And they seemed to just take those established characters, and they just stuck them in there again, and they tried to write a very long, involved story around them, as opposed to letting them have a loose story that they told jokes around. I guess in some ways comedy should be like pornos, that, you know, you're really just there for a loose plot and the jokes instead of a loose plot and the sex. It's weird. Number 2 is, of course, reused jokes, and I don't need to say a lot about that. We don't like reused jokes. We're really adaptable as people. We get used to things very, very quickly. That's why not a lot of people buy CDs of their favorite comedians, because even if they like them, you know, you're not going to want to listen to it regularly because, you know it, you've heard it, you got it. You can rehear a joke a couple times or hear it again later and it's still funny. But particularly in films, the recycling of jokes is not effective. We're really judgy, I guess, as an audience, or at least I am, and I'm like, come on, think of something new. So when you had Brian Fantana had a cabinet of colognes in the first movie with Sex Panther, you're like, aha, that's kind of funny. And then in the sequel, he had a cabinet of condoms, and I'm like, okay, there's his cabinet of weird male paraphernalia. The second time, we got it. Brick is the same character again, so his stupidity is still, okay, we get it, he's really, really stupid. And then they brought in Kristen Wiig's character, who I love Kristen Wiig. I love almost everything she's in, but they just made her female Brick. And they've already made the Brick joke, so making female Brick doesn't make it better, per se. In fact, the only recycled joke that I enjoyed was the newsroom battle when they brought in all the different news crews in New York to fight, and that was only really funny because of the kinds of cameos they had. Like, you know, they had Tina Fey and Amy Poehler in there, and like they're always funny to see, and Liam Neeson is in a newsroom battle, and it's just, you didn't expect that, so there you go, surprise, it's funny. Recycling is not funny. And Ron Burgundy, the jokes were recycled and the plot was new, and I didn't go for the plot. The plot was not, it was not new and good. It was new and awkward and recycled jokes, and it was just, bleh. So there you have it. I have reviewed something I didn't like. Now you know, things are out there. I'm going to go back in future reviews and stuff to my more science fiction fantasy. I just thought I'd share these things with you because they were big films that came out, and I did see them, and I think they're interesting to look at from an analytical point, both Anchorman and Frozen. If you like the channel, again, please subscribe. Talk to you later.